Hey, you ready for this deal, Jimbo?
Hey, Cody boy, you know I'm ready.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Woo, Jimbo, I love hearing that song that Lane wrote for us. That's such a great song, and I never would have thought we'd have our own theme song.
Well, I wouldn't either, but it just fits our podcast perfect.
I know. It has that Osage twang, somebody said.
Yep, absolutely.
We have our own style of music up here now.
Right.
Jimbo, he's been a big songwriter here lately. We'll be debuting one of his songs someday, I'm sure.
Hope.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located right here in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. It's old Cody here, and as always, I have my old co-host with me, my partner, my main man, Mr. Rodeo historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Good morning, Jimbo. Good to see you. Who do we have today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's just another great day in Osage, and Cody, we've got the one and only Marvin Cantrell with us today. Marvin was a heck of a bulldogger. He made the finals in the calf roping. He was a national finalist steer roping, and actually in 1976, he won the year-end championship for steer roping. That was that year when they had the year-end champion, and they also crowned a world champion who won the most money at the finals. And but he was the year-end champion in 1976. And he's been a champion, AQHA calf roping horse champion several times. He rode them. He's rode cutting horse champions. Just an all-around great horse trainer and just an all-around great cowboy. And we're just really happy to have him with us today. And Marvin, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
I appreciate it very much, and it's my pleasure for you guys to invite me and be in the Ben Johnson Museum. I appreciate it.
We're just really happy to have you, man. Where'd you grow up at, Marvin?
On that Richards Ranch in Brady, Texas.
Okay. Were you always want to be a cowboy?
Well, not really. My dad run that ranch there, and they had lots of screwworms back then, and you had to doctor them old sheep and goats, and they had jillions of them, and they were just sort of natural. I could catch them, and then after that ranch was sold, my dad went to work for another place up there, and Harold Heath was the foreman of that outfit, and he roped professionally, and a tremendous good horseman, and he traded lots of polo ponies. And up on where he lived, they had 150 of them muley buck sheep, and they all had worms. Saturday morning, they pushed them up in the corner and let them out there and go rope them. And old Spanish boys would get a hold of them and doctor them and just go get you another. And I just sort of fell into the love with it. And over the years, I got to meet some great people, and I watched them, and they helped me, and I'd rather been considered a good horseman than I had to been a world champion roper, because I just loved a good horse.
Right.
Your dad was a professional roper, you said, Marvin.
No, he just worked on that ranch there in Brady that's where I growed up 15, 16 years, and then sold, and he went to work for another ranch up there. He was an outstanding cowboy.
Well, what got you interested in the rodeo business, Marvin?
Well, like I said, when we got to roping them buck sheep up there with Harold Heath, and Harold was a professional roper. He matched up all the toughs back in those days and beat them, because he always rode a good horse, and he always concentrated on his horse to be, to work. And then I just fell in love with it. And then Punk Snyder had a stud called Scooter S, and he was a tremendous roping horse, and Harold would ride him a lot in them match ropings and things. And I got to meet Punk, and I broke a lot of colts for him, and I fell in love with that, and got to rope a lot there because he roped a lot of goats. And then as I just sort of growed up through the juniors and went to the junior rodeos, and I was fortunate enough at Big Springs, Texas, to tie this calf down. And of course, I'd read them books all about, the pros, the ropers, all the champions, and that Hal would get that magazine and everything. He'd give it to me, and I'd read all about them. But I'd never met Toots Mansfield. And I tied this calf down, and he said, Sonny boy, said, you look pretty good. He said, and I need to talk to you whenever this thing's over. So when it was over, I didn't know who Toots Mansfield was other than his name. Well, I was going out the back down there, and he was sitting there on that horse, and he said, Sonny boy. And I walked over. He asked me what my name was, and I told him, and he said, well, I'm going to put on roping school. And so I don't think anybody's ever done it before. And he said, I'd sure like to have you. And I said, of course, he'd introduce himself to me. And I said, well, Mr. Mansfield, I don't have two nickels to rub together, and I couldn't pay. He said, I didn't say anything about you paying me. He said, I'm going to have it. I'm just telling you about it. And he said, looks like you've got the makings of a pretty good hand. And he said, I'd like to see if I could help you. And I said, okay, I appreciate that. And he said, anytime you come down that road there in Big Springs and I'm there, stop. And he said, I think I can help you. Well, when I'd come by, I'd stop. And I always wanted to think a calf like Jim Bob Altizer. And then Toots showed me how to run your hand down there and pull that calf's neck up on your arm, and then just pull his flank over to your hip pocket. And God, that was easy. And it just sort of blossomed from there. And then as I growed up, I was going to my AQHA rodeos, and I went to West Texas and run into Johnny Barfield and Doug Miller. Well, I stayed out there that summer and worked on it, helped them work cattle and things, and we'd go to junior rodeos. Well, back then you could order a PRCA, and I had a really good brown horse then. And back then at those rodeos, you could join the PRCA rodeo on a permit. And so Doug and I went to Hobbs, and I'll be doggone if I did went around, mess around, and win pretty good in the roping. And Una Butler said, well, she said, you're going to have to join the PRCA before I can pay you. And I said, well, how much is that? And she said, $50. And I said, I don't have $50. And she said, well, I'll cash you a check. So that's the way I joined the PRCA. And over the years, it just sort of went to work. Bossman, I always paid attention to the guys that, did things that I thought was right and win. And just luckily, I went to San Angelo. I roped to San Angelo ever since I was 19 years old in the calf roping. And I seen the tripping, and I thought, boy, that'd be nice, because we had to rope some old wormy cows and stuff out in the pasture, and I like that weight. Are you still there?
Yeah,
Did I lose you?
No, we got you.
Yeah, we're just listening to you here, Marvin.
Well, anyway, I always wanted to trip them steers after I seen it. Well, Kelly and I got to go on them rodeos up there in Oklahoma, and I run into Kelly, and we become friends. And Kelly was roping calves and tripping them steers, and his dad said, looks like you roped them calves, you got a pretty good horse. And I said something about wanting to trip them steers. And I guess that's why all his daddy said what he did. But anyway, he said, well, if you'll help Kelly with the calf roping, he said, we'll help you with the steer roping.
You're talking about Kelly Corbin, for those that don't know.
I'm talking about Kelly Corbin, yes, and his father.
Yes.
And And I stayed there with them and went to them rodeos, and Kelly showed me how to do it. Well, all them toughs back then, Everett Shaw and all the old timers would go there because Earl would always keep 50 head of good steers, and there's big steers too. And I was always watching them guys, and boy, they'd get out there and get it on one to be 10, but they'd hold that trip and go off down there, down the middle of the arena, and they'd ride up beside them cattle and let the cattle leave them and then go, which is supposed to be the way you do tie big cattle down. But I couldn't understand why they was attacking them. I'd ask Kelly, and he said, Kelly said, well, you don't want to duck out there. I said, you'll mess that horse up. He'll get the one to take a step out on you. You don't want to do that. So anything Kelly said, I believed it. I tried to do that. And so anyway, they had an old horse there called Policeman, and he was just a good one. And that's what Kelly let me ride most of the time. And I just sort of rode up that way, and I went to Veneta, and I'll be doggone if I didn't win the all around there and got my name on that trophy. You got to win 3 years in a row. And I went back a jillion times, but I never could win the all around again. So, but the rest of the thing just sort of over the years just fell in place. And then I guess I met Sonny Davis there at Bonita, and over the years we've become friends. And then when I moved out there to New Mexico on that ranch for 13 years, and I really concentrated on that tripping, and Sonny helped me a lot, but Kelly started me, and all majority of it to Kelly. But anyway, then after that, I was lucky enough to run across that old gray horse over Warwell. I had a nice bay horse there, and he died of colic 2 days before the San Angelo Rodeo, steer roping. And by golly, I roped calves, but I never went back after that. But 2 times on War Wagon, and placed both times. But anyway, that old horse is so great. It was just unreal. And in 76, I didn't ever keep up the money or nothing like that. And I wasn't much of a glory hunter. But I always just wanted to have a good horse and tie everyone down as quick as I could. Well, in 1976, I didn't even know it, but Climax Band and I was really close friends. And at the banquet there in Laramie, he said, well, Marvin said, I'm pretty proud of you. He said, you broke 4 all-time records. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I checked with it, and it's true. And I said, well, what about it? And he said, well, you tied the fastest steer, placed it every steer open they had, and won the most money. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, well, that is really great, and I'm proud of it. And I thank everybody that got me in here, but I'd rather be considered a good horseman than be a champion. And I really believe that.
Hey, Marvin, a lot of people don't know how they crowned the world champion there for a couple of years in 76, and I'm not sure if it was 77 or 75. But how did the association crown the world champion on those years?
Okay. Back over the years.
And how did that come about? If you know.
Well, the way that come about is Leo Camarillo had sued the PRCA, and I guess he won his case. So they decided that whoever won the NFR should be the world champion, and whoever won the most money. Before that, whoever won the most money was the world champion, whether they won anything in the finals or not. But after they changed the rules there for 3 or 4 years, I can't remember, whoever won the most money was the PRCA champion. And Lord be God, at the finals there in Laramie, I had the worst finals you ever seen. I think that my first 4 steers just come out and went to the left, and I'd get it on them, time down quick, but that fence is right there at 11. You'd have to go by and go to the back. Anyway, I find a place a time or two, and that's how Charles Good won the finals. He was a world champion. I was a PRCA champion, even though I broke 4 records and won the most money that ever been won in the history of the triplet. $10,200. Hell, they win that much. Yeah, one rodeo now, but that's the way that comes down.
Going back to some of your calf roping days there, Marvin, when you started, there was a lot of tough calf ropers back then, wasn't there?
Yes, there was.
I mean, you're talking about Glenn Franklin, Junior Garrison, and Sonny Davis, Olin Young, guys like that.
Right, and you know, Brady was sort of they had a lot of roping there, and West Texas down there, if you went to a roping, I guess you had to rope against 2 or 3 champions, right. And that's tough. And Dan Taylor would always put on a roping there at Dual. Well, heck, 4 or 5 of them champions be there, and then Charlie Boy Davidson over at Ozona put the big deal on. They'd last a week, trip steers, rope, whatever over there. But I growed up with some tough guys roping. And my friend Sidney Renfro lived at Melbourne, and he was going to school up there at Hardin Simmons. And there's a bunch of them Bill Tiggs, Gip Lovejoy, there's speedsters of them strings, and he'd come over there at them roping. We become friends, and I really learned how to handle that string a lot better after. You know, he knew some shortcuts, and it just went to sort of working for me. And I give City a lot of credit for helping me there, and Pope Schneider and Harold Heath and just all them old champions just seemed to like me, and they'd help me. And then I got off into that horse showing business, and old man Amy Gambling, I helped him a lot down there, and he lived out below us. And then I met Matlock Rose and a lot of those top-notch trainers, and we just become good friends. And I got off in that cutting horse business, and it you know, I didn't know a whole lot about it, but I was lucky enough to build a good horse, and
you mentioned,
it just sort of blossomed up through that.
You mentioned Amy Gamlin. A lot of people might not know, but he was Clyde Burke and Dee Burke and all them's brother-in-law. And
that is exactly right, and he's probably one of the best horse trainers back in the older days that there was.
Yeah.
And
my grandfather
he'd always tell me, he'd say, "You're pushing them horses too much." Well, I love to trade horses, and I had to make them work quick to, you know, make a profit out of them. And he was always telling me, "You got to slow down. You're just pushing them too much." Well, after I got old and quit, I really understand what he means now. But
yeah,
back then I didn't.
He was really a good hand with the horse, and my grandfather said that he's the one that kept those Burke's horses working for him. You know, back in the day.
That's exactly right, because see, he was married to their sister.
Right.
And he kept all the horses working, and he said that was the toughest job he ever had.
I bet it was.
Old horse trader. You know, Jimbo, that most of my family, they're from Clovis, New Mexico, right. And my granddad's place was right across the street from the horse sale barn there, the old farmers and ranchers.
Right.
And he worked directly for the horse sale, and he rode all the horses through for everybody. Did you ever see him doing that, Marvin?
Who's that?
Pete Garnett, my granddad.
Yes, Pete Garnett was a very dear friend of mine. Done lots of business. If there's a good horse come through there, he'd call me. Him, Jimmy Calvert would call me, and I got to where, hell, they called me and tell me how to get it, and I'd just buy him. And yes, I knew him real well. And then I had that big cutting up there at the ranch, at NCHA cutting, where we matched Dry Dock and Mr. Sandpepe, and matched bridleless cutting. And Dry Dock beat Buster and Mr. Sandpepe at that cutting. But Pete he had a chuck wagon then, and he come and cooked and served, you know, dinner and supper there for all the time of that cut. And yes, Pete Garnett was a sure good horse hand, and he really knew how to fix them tripping horses because he worked them to a wagon, and boy, when you work a horse to a wagon, he makes the tripping horse a whole lot quicker.
I guess they get to listen to your voice commands and things like
that. To really have a horse, you got to bond with the horse, and he's got to trust you. So if he gets in a jam, he knows you're gonna get him out without hurting him. And over the years, I was fortunate enough to meet Grand Randall that trained all them chariot horses for movies and all the dressage horses. And he told me how to fix war wagon. When I first started on him, I'd rope the cattle in the eyes. Well, boy, if you rope one in the eye and the horse would land on the end of it like they're really supposed to, they'd kick you. You couldn't time them. And I got tired of that, and I talked to Sonny, and Sonny said, well, you're roping them cattle really good. And you rope them in the eyes, you know you're roping the horns perfect. So I didn't worry about that much. It fixed the horse. So with it, Cheyenne, I believe it was, one of them rodeos up in the Northwest. And Glenn Randall always liked me because I'd go sit at his deal and visit with him. And I went over there one morning and I told him, I said, Mr. Glenn, I need some help. And he said, well, tell me. He said, what's the problem? And I told him, I said, when I rope one in the eyes, I said, that horse lays on the end of it. And he said, they kick the heck out. I can't win that. And he said, I can tell you in 5 minutes how to fix it. And I said, okay. And he said, I know you got that horse stopping when you say, whoa. I said, yes, sir. He said, okay. He said, you just get on him and go to walking him in a circle. And after you walk about 2 circles, he said, say, whoa, real light. Don't holler at him. He said, just say, whoa. He said, because you holler, a horse don't understand its voice, and the loudness blurs, and they can't apprehend that blur. It scares them. He said, just say whoa, and when he stops, he said, just side reins up his neck and let him take 1 step back. And I did that for about 30, 40 minutes out there, and that old horse got to where every time I'd say whoa, he'd stop and just take 2 steps back. Well, I was up the next day in the roping there at Cheyenne, and man, I get it on him before he gets to the camera, and got him laid down nice. Whoa, war wagon, I call his name. He just took a step back on him, and I think I was 13 or 14, and back then that was a tremendous good run. And just through life, I've just been fortunate. The good Lord just blessed me being around those professionals that was outstanding horsemen that had to make those old, stupid horses work good for them.
What do you remember about Toots Mansfield? I know he helped you with flanking the calves, but what else did he maybe help you with, Marvin?
We went to, me and my dad went with Harold Heath to Brady, Texas, to the rodeo, and Harold was roping, and I'd heard about it. This is before I'd met Toots, and I'd heard about Toots Mansfield in them books and things, and Harold had always told me he's a tremendous roper and a good horseman. So when we pulled up there to the roping, well, here's this guy with a 1-horse trailer and a Pontiac car. Sat there, and he had this gray horse tied to his trailer. And I mean, he was a pretty gray horse. And so we drive up there and stop, and Harold gets out and unloads his horse. And this guy's over there brushing that horse. And I said, Harold, who is that? He knew I loved them gray horses. And I said, who is that man brushing that? He said, that's Toots Mansfield. I said, really? He says, yeah, that's him. And so anyway, he brushed that horse off, saddled him, opened up the trunk of his car, and he had 2 suitcases in there. And he opened this one suitcase up, and it's completely full of white shirts. And he pulls this old brown wrapper off his white shirt and puts it on, stuffs his hands in there, and sinks his horse up and stepped on him. And I told my dad, I said, I ain't buying nothing else. I ain't wearing nothing else but a white shirt. And he said, why? I said, because Toots Mansfield wore one. And to this very day, I do not own nothing except a white shirt.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty neat.
And nearly, you go to a opener somewhere and says, Marvin, here is where you look for a white shirt, that's him.
Yeah.
You know, up there in Wyoming, Wyoming, they have a roping every year, Jimbo. It's called the Andy Tillard Memorial Roping, and it's the rules. You have to wear a white shirt up there.
Yeah.
If you wear any other color besides a white shirt, disqualified.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And they have that at Douglas, Wyoming.
Yes, sir. I went to it at Wright, Wyoming, over there, Lee Eisenberger's place. That's where they had it last time I roped there.
They might have it at different places, but they had that roping there at Douglas because I went to roping and tied the fastest steer there, and they give me an old buckle for the fastest steer. I was 12-1 or 2 on him, but no steers as big, and you know, there's 700-800 pounders. You had to really do your business to tie one quick. But you're exactly right,
Mr. Cantrell. You said something a while ago, and you just barely brushed on it, and I think this is something that everybody would love to hear how it transpired and exactly what happened that day. This match cutting horse you had at your house between two of the greatest horses and the greatest horsemen in the world. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? You barely touched on it.
Yes. Buster Welch was riding Mr. Sandpeppy, and Dry Dock, Mel Chartier on Dry Dock, and Dry Dock and Mr. Sandpeppy was nip and tuck during the NCHA cuttings, and Dry Dock won the fraternity one year, and he's a full brother to Docalina. And I just thought it'd be an outstanding deal to have that match between them. Everybody was always talking, this one is the best and that one is the best. And, you know, I thought it'd be nice to sit. So I asked them if they'd have a match cutting there. Just pull the bridle off. And they both agreed to it. And I believe I had Gail Borland, and gosh, it might have been Jack Newton. I can't remember. But Gail Borland was one of the judges. And we had all those 50 heifers there, 2-year-old heifers. And you could just put a string across their back. They was all the same and gentle. Well, Dry Dock beat Mr. Sandpeppy there. And there was quite a bit of conversation about it for a good while, but he dang sure beat him. There wasn't no points given nowhere. And the judges, sure enough, they judged it like it's supposed to be. And everybody was happy about it, and everybody enjoyed it.
Wow, that's really something.
Boy, Cody, Buster Welch. I mean, you couldn't name a bigger legend in the horse world, not just cutting horse, just in the horse world, you know. A well-known name is Buster Welch. What was he like, Marvin? Did you know?
He was a nice guy, really a nice guy, and he was always really good to me. And I'd bought a horse. Well, Matlock had trained his horse for the fraternity, and then he sold him to an old guy down there at Goldthwaite, Texas. And that guy cut on him a little while, and he wanted to sell him. And I was looking for a nice gelding. And Dennis Thunderberg and I were friends. And Dennis told me, he says, I know where there's a nice gelding. He said, he's going to cost some money. And I said, well, what is he? And he said, he's Reed Gabar. And I remembered the name because Matlock was training him for the fraternity. So anyway, it boiled down, and the old man wanted to sell him more than $15,000 for him. And I told Dennis, I said, well, if you can get him, bring him up here at the ranch, because I can't get off because we're branding. And I said, I can't get off. I said, if you'll get him, bring him to the ranch, I want to just rope him in a circle or two and cut a cow on him, and I'll tell you yes or no and pay you in cash money if I like him. They brought him up there, and I rode him on one cow, and I just bought him. And by golly, I had awful good luck with him. And I went to El Paso. I showed him first 5 times I showed him. By golly, I went to Cutting. Well, we get to San Antonio that year at the stock show, and they take the top 5 horses in the NCHA Open back to the rodeo to cut during the rodeo. And they had 2 sets of cattle there. They had a black set of cattle and a Hereford set of cattle. And they just flipped a coin to see which one they used in the finals, and they used the Hereford cattle in the finals. And so, by golly, I made it over at the finals. Well, I was the first one up, and that night in the Cutting. And of course, I wasn't too nervous, but because I trusted that old horse, and Matlock had holding herd for me on the right side, and I cut that first cow, and she tried him, and he nailed her right there in the middle, and she ran across that pen once. Matlock said, "Sit still, cowboy, it's looking good." That's the last thing I remembered. And when it was over, they marked me 150. And man, I was walking 7 foot tall in the air, happy. Well, here comes Buster on Mr. Sandpeppy, and they mark him 151. So he beats me a point. And we're going back across over there to the stalls after it was all over. And anyway, Buster's walking along there leading his horse, and me and Matlock was going across there, and Buster said, "Marv," said, "I'm really proud of you." He said, "You really look good today." He said, "But you just didn't beat me." And Matlock said, "Buster, his name is not near as legible as yours, and why he beat you, why you beat him." And Buster said, "Well, maybe he'll pay his dues like I did someday, and he can do the same thing I luckily got done." And I thought that was a big joke. But that's just about the story of my life, to tell you the truth. It's just, the good Lord just blessed me being around some of the tremendous horsemen in the world, and he just took care of me, I guess.
We got a connection to Matlock Rose right here at the museum, Jimbo.
We do.
Did you know at his estate auction here a while back, they sold his bridle bit, John Israel bit with his Matlock's favorite bridle and everything, over $20,000 for a John Israel bit because it would belong to Matlock Rose. Did you ever use any John Israel bits?
No, sir. I was always a Bill Clapper fan, and at one time I had 147 pair of Bill Clapper bits for headstalls hanging in my saddle house.
That's over $1 million right now, Jimbo.
Wow.
Oh, shit. Right now, there ain't no time. I got one brand new pair that I've kept in the safe, and I got a pair out here at the saddle house I use, and I got a bunch of them stole from me over the years. But anyway.
Marvin, you said that you guys used to trade some polo horses back in the day.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with Harold Berry or Tommy Wayman?
Both of them are dear friends, and old man Cecil Smith was the first 10-go polo player, and he lived there down by San Antonio, and Harold, he traded lots of polo ponies with him, and that's how I met him. And he said, and I sold him, when I got to trading him horses, I sold him 2 or 3 horses, and he invited me to come down and spend some time and ride with him. And boy, I couldn't wait to do that. And I went down there, and I'd never been on a flat saddle before, but he sort of showed me and helped me what to do. And he finally got to let me stick and ball them horses there at home, and showed me. If you think you've got a horse really, really broke in a Western saddle, you put a flat saddle on, you'll see how unbroke he really is. And Mr. Cecil, he'd go all over the world putting on them schools and things, and he'd always bring back bits with him all over the United world. And I'd take that pattern and give it to Bill Clapper. And that's how Bill when Bill was building them bits, he was right south of Tail, Texas, up there in a little old tin building. And I stopped there going to Vernon at the rodeo, and the first set of bits I bought off them cost $12.50. And then they got up to be $2.50, and then then just, but every day he'd come to all them stir opens, and I just tell him, bring me them, as many as you going to bring me. And that's how I acquired all them bits. We become good friends. And old Bill, he's a tremendous, and then during that big sale that Matlock and Carroll had, they sold one of Bill Clapper's bits in there for $12,500. A 27. It's just like the one I got hanging in my safe right now.
You know, a lot of people don't know that Harold Berry and Tommy Wayman, two of the best polo players to ever live that come from America. They're from right here in Osage County, Jimbo.
I know.
Both of them.
Well, that is absolutely
Burbank, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the truth. And Roy Berry was a big stout son of a gun. And I'm telling you what, he could knock that ball plumb across the world. And I always admired him because he was long-armed and I was long-armed. And I always admired him. And finally, Mr. Cecil let me play in one of them little half-gallop games. And if Roy was riding a green horse, he'd ride him in them half-gallop games, you know, get him sort of seasoned. And Mr. Cecil always said, now, you watch out for old Roy. He said, now, he's liable to put a little fear in you because he's liable to knock you around a little bit. And boy was going down through there, and he'd holler at you, say, hey, punk, get out of the way. I'm fixing to move over you. Well, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about the first time that happened. And he bumped me a little, but not very hard. And then when it sort of scared me because it ricocheted me, when we got back over, I asked Cecil, I said, what's the deal? He said, well, I'll tell you what, next time we do this, he said, I'll bring old Charlie with me. So he brought old Charlie with him. And next time, he said, when you go down there and Roy does that to you, he said, you just look over your shoulder and tell him to come on. And he said, you get your right leg in that son of a buck and you take your wrap around that right side of that gag bit. And he said, you drive him forward. And so we're going down through there. And here he comes. And he said, hey, Biggin, you better get out of the way. I never said a word. I just took me around and drove my spurs right side. And here he bumped me pretty hard, but it ricocheted him back out of the way. And that's how we become really good friends.
Wow. You said
isn't that funny how life goes on?
Yeah, it sure is. You showed over the years. You showed several AQHA champion calf horses, Marvin.
Yes, sir.
What was that like?
Well, it was tremendous, and I had 5 AQHA champion rope horses, junior horses, and there's calf horses, heel horses, head horses, and I had old Rodeo Jack, and I bought him when he was a baby off a hired pitcher, and he was a stud, and he was good, and he was the only stud to beat the stud he had beat all summer. We got to the AQHA World Show, and they left the 10 of us down there at the back, and they called out the world champion. Well, he got down to men that's other horses he'd been beating all year long at all them shows. I just knew I'd go win the world. Well, hell, they called that other horse out as the world champion, and Rodeo Jack was the reserve champion. And I had him entered in the NCHA fraternity, cutting fraternity, and I took him down there and showed him. And he was the only horse at that time to ever be the reserve world champion halter horse and make it to the semifinals in the NCHA Cup.
Wow.
I had him, he was ROM in 7 events, and one time I rode him in all 3 of the roping events that Uvalde didn't place in Evergreen. I placed in the calf roping, the heading, the heeling, and the tripping on him. The next weekend, I won the NCHA Open at Victoria, rode him in the cut. He was just that kind of horse.
Did you ever participate in the timed event, Marvin?
No, I never did. They didn't have that when I was going.
Yeah, you just a little bit. Yeah. You'd have been good in that probably, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd have probably had to try them.
Yeah.
What about your bulldogging days?
Well, I just watched it and got to liking it, and I was up there at Ardmore, and I got to want the bulldog, and old Jim Eskew, the trick roper, had some steers there, and we run them a time or two, and then I met Aubrey Rankin and stop over at Burt Burnett and bulldogged a time or two with them, and Charles Boucher was there, and there's 4 or 5 that could really bulldog, and I just sort of went to trying it, and it sort of worked, and I liked it. And I'm a nobody in the green or the gorge, but I like those colts of Jim Smith. And a lot of those guys that ride him would ride in there and mess with old Colt's head of, trying to make him just stare at the gate. Well, old Colt knew more about getting out of that boxing than those riders did. And so I asked Jim one time if I could ride him, and he said, "You bet." And that surprised me, and I rode old Colt, and I'd watched him a jillion times. I rode him in there and turned him around, and he looked to the right, looked to the left, and had his head cocked just a little bit to the left, and that steer was just right, and I nodded and got him caught and placed on him. And I can't ever remember running a steer on that horse that I didn't place. I think he's the greatest steer, and he carried a lot of guys to the championship and the world champion. And I can't ever imagine nobody ever picking up on old Colt and giving him the recognition he really needed. Everybody that rode him won on him. Roy Duval might have won the world on him once or twice. I don't know. But he's just a tremendous horse. And Jim asked me, I wouldn't even try to score him. I'd just get ready to get out. Hell, he knew more than I did. And at Houston, I had a steer that really, really run. And Jim said, "You only really get out of there because this sucker's running." Well, I didn't care about getting out. I knew old Colt did because I was third or fourth one up on him. And I just backed him in that corner. He cocked his head to the left. And I just got ready and nodded. And we was 4 flat in the slack that morning in the Astrodome across that white line. And I was so happy I jumped up and threw my hat in the air. And June Ivy and Joe, there was a secretary, and she cussed like a sailor, and she said, "You smart little SB." She said, "Don't you know you can't get your hat to the ceiling of this?"
That's where all the bull riders got it from. They were copying Marvin.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. I give all the credit to the horses I rode. Anytime I won, I give it to the horse. And to this very day, I love a good horse. And I don't know, it might not be good for me to say what I'm going to say on this interview here, but I cannot believe these guys going down the road and roping the Bulldogging down. I'm so proud that they put that deal. You've got so many seconds to get out of the box. They'll ride up, move up, ride up, move up. Well, Jesus Christ, that just confuses the horse. You don't know what you want.
You see that in the Bulldogging so much. They ride, a lot of them ride the same horse, and they back in there, and some of them just have the darndest time getting ready, and then some other cowboy will come in there and just turn him around the same horse, and don't mess with him, and he gets out just perfect. He just stands for him. But
you're exactly right, and that just drives me crazy. I just don't watch it like I used to.
Yeah, I know it.
Did you ever bulldog at Cheyenne, Marvin?
Yes, I did.
What was it like bulldogging at Cheyenne back then?
Well, I liked it myself, but you had to really, really be on a real horse, sir. One you could maneuver around because the one that knew how to get by up there. But old Colt was so great. If 2 guys went before you did, or 1 guy, that horse knew how to get out, and he knew how to catch a cow. It didn't make no difference where he went to the right or to the left. And he could run. And he would set your feet on the ground perfect every time. That horse would never set your feet in front of him. He'd always take that step to the left and speed up. And when I really got to wanting to win something in the bulldogging, well, Tom Neesmith he weighed 185 pounds and could bulldog 1,200-pound cattle in 4. And I went with him about a week one time, and he showed me how to lock. When you get down, lock that elbow, you hold that left horn, and lock that left elbow, and as that horse leaves you, he's going to take that left step to the left and speed up. So that's going to put your feet right there, and you hit on the side of your feet and slide sideways. And with that horn and with your elbow locked on it, as that horse and your weight leaves, it'll turn that steer's head straight up. With the right horn will be sticking straight up in the air. And you got to watch it. That horn will hit you in the eye, and if it pushes up, or your elbow's going to bend, and that'll turn that nose up in the air. He said, always lay that curb chain in your nose and bend your arm. And he said, never take that nose towards one shoulder. Always bring that steer's nose past your left ear. And boy, you can just wring one out that way. And after a few times trying it, I guess I got the hang of it. It really worked.
Well, you had to kind of...
Old Tom, a lot of gratitude and thanks for that.
You had to shake cattle up back then more, didn't you, Marvin? Where nowadays they don't shake them up.
Yeah, yes, you had to bring them around and bulldog them. You can't. Right today, every time these horses drop your feet in front of them, the steer will jump over the bulldogger. And these little old cow horn steers that bulldogging now, if you don't get your hand on that horn, it'll slip right by your left rib cage and you'll lose it.
Yeah.
But that's just,
Oh, yeah.
That's just a different way times has changed.
What do you think of the calf roping these days, Marvin?
I think it stinks. They rope them damn little old milk pen calves, and the damn horses are ducking off. When the jerk line runs out, there's one or two horses that'll go ahead and work like you're supposed to, and the rest of them, they forget what's happened.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be that way, I guess, but I am. And them guys, half of them don't even know how to saddle the damn horses. They cut them in two in the flank seats with them danged old nylon cinches. Well, hell, when they do that, puts all them guts and takes the air away from them, and then they sit beside of their butt and kick, kick, kick. And I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Used to be
I should be.
Horse trading.
I should be. What?
What about horse trading, Marvin? A little bit of horse trading.
I love it. And I growed up around some Poodle gypsies. I mean, they knew how to cheat you.
I was going to ask you about a guy. Did you ever know Clifford Barnes, Cliff Barnes?
Very dear friend of mine. I'll tell you a story about that.
Hold up. That's my great grandpa, just so you know.
That's fine.
No, I love hearing stories about him, but I figured if you were around many horse sales growing up, you probably ran into that fella.
Well, I damn sure did. Well, there's another guy, god dang, a big fat guy, and he lives up there around Appalachian. So Barrington was his name, Claude Barrington. You ever hear of him?
No, sir, I didn't.
Well, Claude Barrington was, and Barnes, they bought all the same kind of horses. Well, anyway, I went with Hal to the horse sale up there at Brownwood because it wasn't far. And I met all them guys. Like Hal knew them all, and he traded with all of them. Well, anyway, I was down there at Mr. Harper's with rope down there, Alvin Harper and London Stanley with AC. We rope down there. Me and AC bought an old horse, and he was a bucking rascal. our Cracker Walker over there. Heck, if Mr. Harper told us to leave that sucker alone, but didn't cost us $75. We thought, boy, we're going to make a killing here. Well, anyway, he bucked us up both off the bat. It's unreal. And we finally got him in that little old pen where we could ride him around. So we take him to Brownwood. And we flipped a coin, and I had to ride him in the ring. And, oh, man, I did not want to ride him in that ring, but I had to. So we get in the ring. I told these guys, y'all keep your whips off this horse. He don't need no whips knocking him around. And I got on him, moved in one end. He turned around, moved in the other end. He turned around, stopped me, backed up the deal, didn't grab his better than nothing. Well, they went to bidding on him, and they ran him up Bravo. Barnes and Carl Barrington was bidding against each other. And I think horse was around 300 or something. Well, anyway, Mr. Carl Barrington stopped the deal, and he said, "Sonny boy, is this horse gentle?" And I said, "Well, he's gentle enough for me." And I just got down. Well, he bought the horse 3 1/4. And Barnes said, "Well, that's good. I really didn't want him anyway." And so the next month they had the sale, we was back up there, and we pulled up with some horses, and this Claude Barrington was getting out of his pickup over there, and I said, "Oh my Lord, that's that man that bought that horse." and Hal said, "Well," he said, "only thing you can do is be nice." And anyway, he gets out when he had a walking cane. He's going across there, and I'm out. We're getting them horses unloaded. He said, "Partner," he said, "I need to talk to you." I thought, "Oh Lord, what's he going to tell me?" And he walked over there, and I walked over there. Harold come with me. I knew he wasn't going to hurt me because Harold would have killed him. But anyway, he said, "I want to shake your hand, son." And I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, you taught me something." He said, "That son of a buck that we bought down there for 3 1/4, he said, that's bucked every son of a buck in the world off." And he said, "I don't know how good a bronc rider you are, kid, but my God, you taught me to never buy another horse gentle enough for a kid." And Barnes, he gets a hold of this story, and him and Claude, they ripping in about that all the time, you know. Pete Garnett's the one that was telling me that they'd always talk about that kid that had that horse gentle enough for Barry.
You know, my great-grandpa there, that Clifford Barnes Jimbo, he got bedridden in the later years, and they lived over by Elk City, Oklahoma at the time, and once or twice a week, everybody bring their horses to him, and he'd buy and sell horses right out of his bedroom window.
Really?
Hundreds every week. Hundreds of them every week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I heard that story, but I never knew if it was true or not.
Yeah, he'd buy them out there, and then my grandma would go cut all their manes and tails off, the ones that weren't going to be riders, and they'd sell the horsehair, and then they'd ship it down to Argentina, I think, on a train. Once they got a train car load of horsehair.
Wow.
They'd ship it all down there.
Well, you know, over the years, there was a lady in California that made those artificial tails for horses. And she run barrels. She's a nice lady. And somebody told her to call me, and I might know where there's some tails. She called, and I got her in touch with that boy over at Palestine that killed all them horses. And she'd drive California down there and fill them 55-gallon barrels up full of them tails that cut off them horses. And that's the way she made a living for a good many years with that.
What was that fella's name? It was Gene Earl Alexander, right?
At Palestine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it was.
He bought and sold a lot of horses in his day.
Yes, that's true.
No doubt about it. Hey, some horse trading terminology. What does hopping the alley mean for everybody that don't know it?
That means you give them a drug, run that vein, and give them a drug to make them sound or to calm them down, one of those.
I thought it was buying them when they came in and then rerunning them during the sale and hoping to make some money on them.
Well, now that's what you call rerunning one.
So hopping the alley is giving them a shot. Either make them gentle or sound.
Gentle sound, that's right.
I'll be dang.
Hell, I tell you what, I'm not going to tell you his name, but I know an old gypsy that made $1 billion out of just completely doing things that was absolutely wrong. But the thing about it is, I noticed it and knew how to keep from getting skint by it. I seen him buy a horse one time in Brownwood and poured a dozen eggs down his ears that morning at 4 o'clock. And he tried to buy him the night before, and that guy wanted $500 for him. He wanted to give $250. And that morning he poured a dozen eggs down some buck's ears, and he was running all that yellow stuff out of his nose, and he was standing in the corner with his head down. And we walked down the alley, and he said, "Damn, you should have sold me that horse at $250. Now he's got the temper, and I don't want him." Well, anyway, he ended up getting the horse bought for the $250. And he said, "You move that trailer on down there at the back of that cotton shed." He said, "I'll be down there this horse in a minute." Well, we got down there, and we get over about 20 miles down the road. He stopped and gave that horse a drink of water and trailer. And we drove on home about another 50, 75 miles, unloaded him out of the trailer. The next morning, he'd blowed all that snuff out of his nose just cleaning a pen.
Well, that'll happen. There's a lot of there's some guys in the horse trading business that gives all horse traders a bad name sometimes.
Those old gypsies is the ones that made a horse trader that bad. But what turned my life around was Bill Phillips hired me. I owned Dash for Cash out to Phillips Ranch, Frisco, and I broke all them colts for him for 2 years while Jimmy Bush was in the Army. And boy, he showed me how to train the horses the correct way, and it made all the difference in the world. My horse trade. I'd never seen a horse bring $10,000. And I'd get my colts rode. Well, BF come down there, and there's 111 gates on that thing. Well, he'd drive around in that buggy and show people the horses. And he said, "Well, get in if you got your colts rode and open the gates for it." And I'd go open goats. And Miss S.K. Kelly was down there one day, and we was riding along. She said, "Mr. Phillips, I'm not going to give $15,000, but I'm going to give $10,000 for that mare." Mr. Phillips says, "Well, I can't tell the difference in $10,000 and $12,000 in a horse anyway." He said, "You got a deal." And I asked him, I said, "How in the world did you ever sell a horse that much money?" He said, "It's real easy." And I said, "Well, would you tell me?" He said, "Yes, sir, don't forget." He said, "Have one bred better, look better, and in better shape, and broke better, and ask more." That changed my style, and that's exactly what I was doing. And I was lucky enough to sell the first calf horse for $25,000 to Milo Avenue in Houston, Texas.
I was really getting something for one.
Well, yes, that was the highest price calf horse that was ever sold up to that date, you know.
Marvin, we're sitting here in the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum here in Pawhuska. Did you know Ben Johnson?
Yes, he's a very dear friend of mine.
What was he like?
I got all kinds of pictures of Ben in my house there. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
What kind of
John Miller, his nephew, and I was really close friends. And John, I gave John a good black horse one time. And yes, Ben is a very dear friend of mine.
Was he a good fellow to be around?
The nicest guy I know.
That's the rumor on him. Anyway, that's the rumor everyone keeps saying. He's the nicest feller they ever met.
He always could remember your name and would always have his hand out for you if he come walking to you. And whenever you shook his hand, he looked you square in the eye. He didn't glance off either until the handshake was over. And my dad always told me, he said, "When you shake hands with a man, look him in the eye, that's your bond, buddy." He said, "You do exactly what you say you'll do, and I think it's a good deal."
Did you ever get a chance to see him rope?
Ben Johnson, yes, I roped with him down there in Houston one time at Carry Crutchers. I've got a black horse right now, 4-year-old horse that is really, really a nice horse, and I named him Ben after Ben Johnson's black horse.
That Crutcher Ranch, that was a famous ranch back in the day down there, wasn't it? Still is.
Yes, it was.
You know,
yes,
a friend of mine owns it now. I think Mike Uthier and his wife live on it sometimes.
Oh, is that right?
I think they had a steer rope in there a few times when they were doing.
Well, they have him. They have the steer open for that rodeo out there at Crusher Pen. That's the biggest pen enough to have it in. I think that's right.
Yes, sir. Oh, Mike Uthier, he runs half of it, and then his wife has the other half. It's all polo fields. Mike's half is about like any other old rancher's place.
Right.
But that Crutcher Ranch, what was it about it made him so famous? I'd heard of a million stories that they did some pretty wild stuff.
Oh, that guy, Cherry Crutcher, he's a little millionaire. He tried to trip steers. He liked cowboy way of lifestyle, and he traded in Argentina and Brazil back in that country. And he mingled with all the rich people.
Marvin, what do you think about the current horse market? Did you ever think you'd see in your life that, which I agree, that your rodeo horse needs to be worth at least as much as the rig pulling him?
Well, you're exactly right, but I never in my life would dream to see horses this high. 3 years ago, just a nice horse that was bred pretty good to make a rope horse or performance horse off of. You could buy them $5,000 or $6,000. Now the same horse will cost $10,000 to $15,000. And a horse you can back in there and go win something is priceless. It doesn't make no difference what you want to ask, so somebody will give it.
Yeah, there was a steer roping horse sold right here from Osage County for over $100,000 here a few years ago.
That is well, that boy over at McAllister, Mike Hess, what's his last name?
Chase, Mike Chase.
Mike Chase, he's a good friend of mine. Hell, he turned $100,000 down for that little gray horse at Pendleton last year. And I told him, I said, well, if you want to win something, you better keep him.
It cost him $200,000 to replace him now.
More. It's just unreal.
What do you think about the steer roping these days, Marvin?
I think it stinks. It's the biggest joke I ever seen.
What about it do you not like, Marvin?
Well, I don't like the cattle at the rope, and I don't like the way them guys just run over themselves, jump, chuck, and rope one and swing a trip over there, jump off. If he lays their 6 flat or 10 flat or 9 flat on him, if he don't lay, there goes the horse, runs off with the sun buck, and everybody's hollering, whoa, no time. Then they draw one that lay, and they win the go around on him, and they don't worry nothing about trying to win the average. They just go try to win first every time they go arounds. And if you don't have a sponsor that just lets you do whatever you want to do or the money to do that, I don't think it's very smart. If you've got a good horse and you tie every steer down as good as that steer will let you tie him down, at the end of the year you'll win more money than they will. But that's just the way I think.
What do you think about the way they're running some rodeos like Cheyenne and stuff now, where there's not even an average anymore? It's just whoever wins the short round wins the rodeo. It sounds kind of like back in 1976 when you won the most money and they gave it to the average guy.
Well, I think that any time that the PRCA let them you know, when they founded the PRCA, it was for the cowboy. Well, now it's not for the cowboy, and it's, you got to, you know, a PRCA member. When I joined, if you had a PRCA card and wasn't on the blacklist, you could enter any rodeo or the PRCA had. Well, now you got to qualify to be able to enter a PRCA rodeo. I think it's a bad deal for the up and coming ropers.
I hate to sound all negative, and I was going to ask you something else. And I don't know if you heard this or not. I don't know if there's any truth to it. Did I hear that this year that San Angelo, they're not going to have a steer roping, they're replacing it with a breakaway roping?
Well, now, I have not heard that, but I know they are going to have the breakaway roping but I tell you what, I hadn't been back there in 4 years to watch the roping. The last time I was there, they had some little cattle weighing 390 pounds. Jimmy Adams is standing on the line with a flag big enough to wave off Texas. Well, them little old cattle in the shark go, they had to go back to the first go around to get 12 to go in the shark go. And them guys are leaving that box, hitting them in the butt, knocking them down. And every time they get to the score line, they're fresh, hadn't been through there, and flop that flag. Well, they just duck to the left, and that left fence is not 20 foot there. Well, hell, you get one like that, and then you run at him, hit him in the butt, knock him down. It just, I got up and left. Never been back.
Boy, how did they used to have a big Calcutta there?
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you what. One time I left there, I'd placed I go around the calf roping and I go around in the steer roping, and I placed in the average on one of them. I forgot what it was, but I left there with $17,500 cash money in my pocket for what those gamblers paid me and what I won there.
One year, my dad, he was going down to San Angelo, and I remember it. I was a little old kid, and my mom was mad at him for going because he hadn't been roping all fall. And the Calcutta people called and said, "How's old Rocky's horse looking, and how's he roping?" And she said, "I wouldn't spend any of my money on him. He ain't been roping. And when he does rope, he ain't been roping good, and he ain't been riding his horse or nothing." Well, anyway, my dad ends up going on down to San Angelo, and he never called home. But the Calcutta person that called my mom called home, madder than hell, because he ended up winning the damn thing. Ain't that the way it goes sometimes?
Well, it is, but he's liable to beat you about anywhere he showed up too.
Oh yes, sir.
He could have been roping every day and still beat your butt.
For sure. What about Madison Square Garden? Did you ever get a chance to compete there?
No, that's before my time.
I didn't know if you would have had a chance to compete there or not.
No, that's before my time. Well, they had a rodeo there last year or two, but after my time, so I didn't know. I never went.
59 was the last RCA rodeo I think they had there.
I think you're right. I don't know.
What about...
hang on just a minute.
Yes, sir.
I'm on that interview, and I'll be there in just a second.
Yeah, we're fixing to wind it up on you, Marvin.
Okay.
I know we could probably talk for another 2 or 3 hours.
Well, I've told you about how stupid I am and what my thoughts are, but you can take what part of it that you like and use it, and what part you don't, cut it out.
Yeah, we like it all.
We liked it all, Marvin. We appreciate it.
Well, that's a good deal, my friend, and it's my pleasure to be invited to the Ben Johnson deal because he's a dear friend of mine, and I'm in 4 of those things, and this might be one of the best.
Marvin, if you were doing before you get away, if you were doing a Mount Rushmore of ropers, just don't have to be calf ropers, steer ropers, whatever. Just need 4 names that you'd put on your Mount Rushmore of the best ropers that belong up there.
From the old timers to today.
Anybody you want to put on it. You didn't even have to see them rope. Just whatever you have the respect for, you know.
Well, I really liked I like Toots, and I like the way he wrote, and I like Jim Bob's deal, I like Sonny Davis's deal. Oliver was okay, and he got old Mickey, and that's what made him great. He fit him. And
Well, that's pretty good 4 names right there.
Hey, Marvin,
and
let's do one more. Let's get the Mount Rushmore of great rodeo horses. Don't matter what event they were in. What's the best 4 rodeo horses you've ever seen?
in my life,
Yes, sir.
okay. First off would be Hillfly, that tripping horse at Kelly's.
That was a famous horse. Didn't Ike Root originally train that horse?
Yeah.
Yes, he did, but I'm telling you, Kelly kept that horse in good shape, and he took care of him like he was part of the family. Well, he was part of the family.
There's one.
Well, I got to use old Mickey because I rode him for 4 rodeos, and Jock Saunders mounted me and entered me, and I won something at every one of them rodeos on old Mickey. He was an outstanding horse, a little hard, late stopping, a little hard. He had to fit a lot of people different. And I like Vernon, that horse Vernon Cruz had. He's an awful nice horse. And I think that bay horse that Tate Smith got right now is an outstanding good horse.
What about Old Dutch?
Dutch, what's that?
The buckskin horse my dad sold to T Woman. Where would you rank him out there?
Well, he's a nice horse. That horse wouldn't fit a lot of people. That horse is big and strong, and a lot of people couldn't ride that horse. That's just my opinion.
Yes, sir. I'm just asking. True Blue.
What's your opinion?
I was a little bit too young to know any different, to be honest with you. I did watch a tape of the finals here a while back from 1985 or 86 where that horse fell down with my dad, and he got back up and worked the rope, and he placed in the go-round on him. So that said a lot about him to me right there. Most horses probably would have ran off.
Well, every time, yep. He was a great horse, but he just always looked like he wouldn't fit a lot of people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And today, he'd scare half of them trippers to death. Because the mister, whenever you dropped his head, he done his thing and done it quick and like he's supposed to. And he was big. He was big and stout with it.
I thought he might stick Roy Cooper on that greatest list of ropers of all time.
Yeah.
I thought he might stick him on there.
Well, it's hard. There's just 4 names, you know. It's hard to find a spot for everybody.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Well, Marvin, you got anything you want to tell the people?
Thank you very much for being invited to be on this deal. Other than that,
He's always got a good horse or two for sale down there. If anyone's ever looking, I think Marvin got some real eyeball stretchers. What do you look for in a horse, Marvin, when you buy one for yourself right now?
I just look at one that really looks the part, and the breeding is right on him, and if I'd like to own him and keep him for myself.
What do you like? How tall do you like a horse, and what do you like them to weigh?
Well, I don't want a horse over 15 hands tall, and I like a half thoroughbred horse and a half quarter horse. I want a little thin pencil neck on one, and both sides of his brain working the same. You know, a horse has got 2 brains, and if you don't keep both of them trained the same, he's going to be uneven. And I want a horse that can really, really run and run quick. But when I say whoa, I want him to freeze in his tracks and don't move until I move him. And I want him gentle. I want him to bond. I want him to like me. So if I get in the jam, he'll take care of me. If he gets in the jam, he'll know I'm going to take care of him.
Do you think a horse needs a lot of outside riding nowadays? It don't seem like they do a lot of outside riding on these rodeo horses anymore.
I tell you what, if you don't have a horse rode down outside until he's tired, I don't know how in the world you train him. But you get a horse, you ride the horse outside and go somewhere on him. I don't mean hit you a loping for 20 miles, but just use him and walk, trot, and lope. Do what you got to do, but have him tired. Then when you go home and you go to train him, he's ready to take the training and listen to you. But if you've got a horse that when you say whoa, he'll stop listening to you, and it don't make any difference. He's running wide open. You say whoa, and he stops and waits until you catch him and move him. Then you teach him pretty well to do what you want him to do.
I tell you what, everybody better be paying attention because there aren't too many guys like Marvin Cantrell left out there to get some sort of
been
advice.
exposed to the people he's been exposed to, the great legends, you know. Unbelievable.
Toots,
Oh,
Buster,
Buster,
Matlock.
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Marvin.
the thing about it too is, I put my own money in their suckers and had to make them better, or I'd go broke.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, thank y'all very much for this interview, and if I ever get up in that country, well, I hope I meet you. We'll all go eat something.
Well, let's do it.
Yes,
let's go
sounds
do
good.
it.
Thanks, Marvin.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank
We sure
y'all very
appreciate you.
much.
You have a good day. Hope you make a good trade on that bay horse.
I don't want to sell him. I want to keep him for myself. But anyway, do y'all have a tape of this interview?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What do they cost?
Well, we'll see about. We'll just send you one for free. I don't know if it'll be a tape.
Well,
Be something. Someone
you know,
can help you play it. It's going to go out on national broadcast here in a week or two.
What channel will that be on?
We'll call and let you know.
On the Cowboy channel?
Maybe. Probably
Well-
not. It goes out on the internet, Marvin.
Oh, I see. All right, my friend. Thank y'all a lot. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yep, bye.
Ooh, Jimbo, what a legend.
Oh, yeah. I'd forgot that he had been around some of those people. Amy Gamlin, he was a legend horse trainer. And he mentioned Everett Shaw, Toots Mansfield, Buster Welch. I mean, just unbelievable.
Every major name in the
Right.
history of rodeo, cutting horses,
Right.
show horses, bulldogging, calf roping, steer roping, ranching.
Right.
Holy moly.
Right. For sure.
What about that? Well, everybody, this has been another great edition of the Osage Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum. Be sure to like us, share it, subscribe, tell everybody about it. Me and Jimbo just trying to save this rodeo history now.
For sure.
See everybody next week. Thank you, Marvin.
Yes, sir.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.